Broken Thing, Chapter 9. Once they had completed his medical treatment, Kegarin sat quietly while they worked on her. They appeared to be in another estate. This estate was smaller than Krios's had been, at least partially abandoned, bereft of furnishings with packing materials strewn haphazardly in the corners of the cleared room that served as triage. He had several bad bleeds, one close to his femoral on the left. He'd been told he was lucky he was alive. He was lucky. He was alive. So was she. He had missed his leap onto the rescue vehicle on purpose, certain he'd be able to hold on with one hand. His blessed Dralafa had reached for him. He'd wiped out all the estate's retained tech commands and programming, shut off the electricity, and disabled generators moments after he'd gotten a vibrating notification that Thane Krios had been informed of perimeter breach, which had been relayed to his Omnitool. Thane Krios would cease to be as an entity, all frequencies and contacts dead. The estate would quickly pass to the highest bidder, and that would likely be the counselor and the shadow broker. They would have to pay for their evidence and witnesses. Cara was sedated and still as the medical techs worked on her. He did not offer assistance. The less authority he took upon himself from this moment forward, the better. He would now be counted among the reluctant, his task completed, finding heroism not to his taste, willing to hand her over to the more competent, the more caring, those who had a right to her. What he felt was pride, looking at her still form. It was jarring, seeing her surrounded by larger people when he was accustomed to her on her own or next to him. She seemed smaller than ever, pale as always. The sun had touched her for the first time in months. He wished he could search her body for the first freckle making its appearance. He would find them all later, greet them, and welcome them back to her skin. Now she must find her way back to her ship, and he was certain she would. He was offered food, which he accepted. He was offered rest, which he declined. He stated he wished to wait for her to wake before resting himself. When she was deemed stable after a few hours of blood replacement and treatment of lacerations and internal injuries caused by probe, ultrasound, and glass, they were loaded into a shuttle and had a Beckenstein escort to bring them to the Mass Effect gate. She was still sedated to help counteract blood loss and shock, giving her time to recover through transport. She would likely be in pain for a few weeks due to nerve damage. He had been reassured that his removal of the chip had been minimally damaging, nothing permanent, trauma that would heal with therapy. He was not informed of their final destination, and he did not ask. When they were through the gate, the shuttle gave the braking whine and standard sounds and movements of docking in a bay. His Dralafa was on a gurney, with him sitting to the side. It seemed she had managed her assigned task while unconscious. She was back on her ship, the pilot saying, "Normandy SR2, permission to come aboard." "Permission granted, Jeff. We've got her, Edie. She's home." "Thank you for bringing her back, Jeff." The man at the shuttle control stood and limped back to the passenger bay. Kegarin identified him as Jeff Moreau. Call sign Joker. Her pilot for the Normandy through each iteration of the ship. Moreau paused by the side of the gurney, looked down at her, and told her, "Look, Shepard, I don't know why you think you're allowed to run off and get your hair done, but we just don't allow that sort of AWOL, you understand? First it's dying, and now it's because you want to be pretty, and this has just gotta stop. For the record, you looked better before. Welcome back. Again, Commander. Let's make this the last game of hide and seek, okay?" He walked over to Kegarin. I'd shake your hand, but I don't think Drell'll do that, and I don't because I don't want a broken hand. I do want to thank you. My name's Jeff. Joker to everyone else, and to you, if you're in the mood. Thank you for bringing her home. You are welcome, Jeff. Moreau smiled and turned to the opening hatch of the shuttle, with Vicarian ducking through the widening opening impatiently. Hey, glad you could make it, Counselor. Vicarian's eye sought and held her. The Turian ignored Moreau and stepped over to the side of the gurney, set his hand on the top of her head, resting lightly on black hair. Kegarin would allow it, had to allow it, would not count it against either of them that he would wish to touch her. Of course he would. Everyone would. She was particularly small and fragile against the hulking Turian and Vicarian blue citadel finery whose talons were barely touching her, his expression loving, his face transformed from the civil servant to the bondmate. Vicarian said, Call me Garrus, or I'll revoke your docking rights on the Citadel, Joker. You'll have to explain that one to her. Sure thing, Garrus. Dr. Shakwas is waiting for these guys. Vicarian looked up as though remembering there was another person on the shuttle, having forgotten in his trance. Dr. Itran, I owe you everything. Thank you. Follow me. Kegarin thought that, yes, he was owed everything of value to Vicarian. He would take it. He nodded solemn acknowledgement of the debt, of the direction. Vicarian slit the restraining straps on the gurney open with his talons, and Joker said, Oh, come on, those probably cost money. Show off. I'll reimburse you. Me personally? Deal. Vicarian lifted her carefully and turned, Jeff indicating with a gesture of his head to follow. Kegarin stepped onto the Normandy, stood tentatively and looked around the shuttle bay. He looked suitably impressed. He was impressed, touched by Jeff's willingness to potentially sign his life away in order to pilot her back home, by Vicarian's definition of everything. His Dralafa was inspiring, and he smiled at the Normandy as he would wish to smile at her. Jeff let him spend a moment in reflection, and then when Kegarin turned back to him, began walking again with his limp, following Vicarian's retreating back to the elevator. Vicarian waited for them, seeing nothing but her face. It seemed the entire ship's crew complement was in the mess hall. Vicarian carried her to the medbay, and there was clapping, cheering. The sound cut off at the close of the door, but the celebration was still visible through the glass. Vicarian did not put her down on the bed, but sat on the edge of it, and held her. Dr. Shakwas smiled at the gesture, and then turned to Kegarin. Dr. Itran, my name is Karen Shakwas. I would like to thank you for bringing her back to us. You are welcome, Dr. Shakwas. Are you in any pain? He was, a great deal, but did not wish to be examined. No, I was treated effectively by medical staff on Beckenstein. Is there anything I can get for you? My needs are met, thank you. Would you like a bed or a chair? Chair, please. She indicated a chair, and he sat, forgotten by all three, unseen. He was now Dralafa, and it suited the moment. He suppressed a smile. Moreau leaned against the wall, watched Vicarian hold her, as Karen said, Counselor, I need to examine her, please. I do hate to ask, but it is necessary. Garrus lifted a brow plate. I don't like that plan. Call me Garrus, or Joker will explain what happens. Dr. Shakwas's brow rose. She turned her head to Moreau, who said, We can't put in at the Citadel. He's a little pushy today. Give a man a little power and his commander back, and he thinks he could do that. I mean, he can't do that. He can totally do that. Dr. Shakwas nodded sagely and then turned to the Turian, saying, Garrus, Commander Orbiston is not here to help you. This is my medbay, and I say, put her down. Garrus smiled at Cara and said to her, like Russ could do any better. Then he stood up and said in his counselor voice, Okay, Karen, don't lose her. I shall do my best. Now, Garrus. He stood, and Dr. Shakwas ceremoniously shifted back the blanket so Garrus could put her down. Cara was dressed in medical scrubs of pale and wrinkled green, her violet ribbons gone. Jarring in so many ways, seeing her in rough rags, in the arms of a Turian, surrounded by people who wanted more than anything to touch her, to make sure she was real, after having been surrounded by people unable to touch her because she was so unreal. Dr. Shakwas busied herself with assessment. Vicarian passed his talons over Cara's hair once more, and then turned to Moreau. Please relay to Commander Orbiston that I would appreciate it if he headed toward docking at the Citadel. Aye, aye. On my way. Moreau saluted, and left the medbay after one last look at Cara, smiled, and limped out, stopped to speak to people in the mess. They reached out to him, a proxy to touching her. He was a relic at the moment, and people gathered to pay respects. Vicarian turned to Kegarin and said, She's in good hands. You sure you're not hungry? Thirsty? No, sir. Please, call me Garrus. Let me walk you to your cabin. You can get a shower, get some sleep. Yes, sir. Garrus. That's better. Can't stand being called sir when I'm on the Normandy, or counselor. If I'd been smart, I'd have never left this ship. Kegarin was gratified that he knew that, but he said, That would have been the loss of the Turian people and those who rely upon you for inspiration. Thank you for saying so. I'm hoping it's true. Vicarian walked back through the sea of people, smiling and waving, but moving on past Jeff, not getting waylaid. It was a short trip. Small cabin, but it should suit your needs. Please, clean up, get some rest. If you need anything, Edie is the ship's AI. Let her know. If you'd like to talk to anybody or get some food, anything you need. I can't thank you enough. You are welcome, and thank you for your help, Garrus. I could not have done this without your assistance. I am grateful she is home. You're welcome. We're all grateful she's home. Vicarian left him at the door, no doubt to return to the medbay immediately. Kegarin was exhausted and in pain. The planning of months was over. His old life abandoned, and a new one begun. That they cared for her, that they treated him well was touching, and although he did not trust that they would treat him well for long, he showered with blank mind, washed off her blood and his blood. Someone had been thoughtful enough to provide clothing, rough and harsh, but it was not spattered with blood. He assumed he would be essentially forgotten in the celebration, except of course by her, and he decided to remain in his cabin until contacted Dralafa, embodied. He moved to the bed. He had refused painkillers, had none of his own here, as he arrived on the Normandy with only the glass-shredded clothes on his back and a woman that no longer belonged to him, until she decided it was so. He must hope the discontinuation of immune suppressants did not result in a crisis, that the blood given or the trauma would not do the same, that he would heal. Fate had chosen to allow them both to live, and he gave thanks. He had little time for reflection, but chose to recall the look on her face as she pulled him on board the shuttle. His determined Dralafa. The sun on her hands, and fire in her eyes while her blood poured down her arms onto his hand. green, and red mingled. Waking up, Cara first noticed two things that made her come to cold, hard consciousness quickly. She didn't smell like Venice fruit. Clothes and sheets scratched across her skin. Not gel fabric. The scent of the medbay and the feel of her clothes and the blanket were physically unpleasant and alarming because it was unexpected, and unexpected was bad. But they felt emotionally welcome, her heart pounding. There was a struggle while her eyes were closed, the imperative urge that she needed to present herself a certain way coming to the front of her mind, sharp and ugly. She anticipated the impulse to correct it as soon as possible. She waited for the dulling compulsion of the chip to work on her. It didn't. She was assured of not having given anything away through reaction. She didn't do that anymore. No jumping, no squeaking, no flinching, no Cara. When she opened her eyes, Karen was there, looking down at her. "Welcome back, Commander." Not Cara had tried to consider how to act if and when she was back on the ship. It took her a moment to shuffle through all the habits she'd built, all the changes she'd made, to revert back to Lal Shepard. Not Cara, not Dralafa. Lal Shepard. She smiled at Karen, half nervous and terrified she'd blow... What? She'd blow something. She'd blow being who she needed to be. She couldn't afford to miss a step. She couldn't be Cara. She had to remember who she had been. She had to do it fast. She wasn't Dralafa, and she wasn't Cara. Lal. She was Lal. Remember, Lal who was dead but wasn't. Lal who was bonded but wasn't. Lal who was a commander but wasn't. She was so grateful to see Karen smiling down at her. She said, "Thanks for saving me a bunk." The memory of the rescue rushed back in on her, and she assumed she had been sedated, fixed, transported back to the Normandy. Back home. Not Kiki nut butter, not Venice fruit. Lal Shepard and all that meant. Military. Karen's eyes were lingering on her lips. "Commander, are you speaking English?" Lal blinked. "No, I've been speaking Drell for several months. It's a habit. Does that matter?" Karen smiled. "No, of course not. Not medically relevant. My translator makes you sound different, and I don't want to mistake that for vocal damage or deficit." It didn't matter what language she spoke, did it? She thought of English, and it felt like the sheets, scratchy and binding and wrong somehow. Get it together, Lal. She made the mental shift and changed to English. "Okay, English then." Karen smiled again. Not the time to discuss the beauty of the language of the man that had kept her captive. The time to discuss what? What's the damage? Am I going to make it? Karen's smile strengthened. Yes, you're in excellent health. Some muscle atrophy from your previous scan, but no damage. Your implants are gone. Your spine site has been repaired and will heal, though there may be some pain from peripheral nerve damage. Nothing permanent. You may experience some isolated numbness. Tell me if that's the case. Your hip is repaired and should heal well. Are you in pain right now? She was. Her neck was sore, and shifting it sent cold and hot trails along sensitized nerves. There were tingling patches of skin and numbness, but she wasn't going to focus on them right now. She'd been in bed and hadn't been moving. It could be that. Her hip was burning, but everything else? No, I'm good. If you are in pain, please let me know. Yes, ma'am. Do you have any concerns or questions? Val blinked and then thought, like, what are the long-term psychological effects of control chip use and repeated sexual abuse over a period of months? She'd find that out on her own. Instead, she asked, how long was I gone? 6 months and 17 days. Well, I cut my absence time to a quarter of what it was before. I'm getting better at this. Karen did not laugh, and neither did Lal. Are you hungry, Commander? She wasn't, but she should say she was, shouldn't she? Appetite a good thing? Yeah, food sounds good. All right. Are you queasy? The medications or the trauma could result in that. She was definitely queasy, but she said, no, I'm fine. A little sore, sure, but nothing I can't manage. Think you could eat solid food? Sure. Do you feel able to speak to visitors? Her mind immediately went to the drow that rescued her, Dr. Itran. Is Dr. Itran okay? Yes, he is well. He is on board. His injuries were treated, and he is resting. I'd like to see him. How long has it been since we left the estate? 18 hours. Karen said with what might be careful phrasing, and Lal was good with careful phrasing, and she listened. I will contact Dr. Itran after he's gotten some sleep, ask him to speak to you. Garrus is here. Perhaps I could ask him to bring you some food, and you could speak. Garrus is here. She blinked, a rush of tears in the beginning of trembling in her limbs and in her voice, but she controlled them. She had plenty of practice with that. That sounds wonderful. Please. She was Lal Shepard, not Cara, not his bondmate, not here, not ever. Oh, Garrus. Lal Shepard, not Kiki butter, not a bond, not a brownie to save forever, not Venice fruit. Lal Shepard, remember. There were too many blank places, purposely blank, too many dark places she needed to keep dark. Things taken and things given, things she had to hold and things she had to drop, and she didn't know which was which. Be a light, but do not shine a light on anything, unless it's a reaper. Be Lal Shepard. Remember that you love him. Remember that it sounds wonderful. Smile. Karen left, and Lal could not let her face stay blank, could not let the dark of the blank there, had to smile. She'd gotten so good at that. So she'd at least learned a skill. She'd learned a few skills. Blurred, blank, dark images of Thane Krios flashed through her mind, and the queasy was worse. But she had to stay here. Stay now. Don't put too much weight in one place. Don't put too much thought or light anywhere. Leave the dark where it lay. Careful. You have to be the most careful you have ever been, and make it look like it's easy. It's wonderful. You're home. Just like on Beckenstein. When Garrus walked in with a tray, she forgot most of everything she'd just told herself because she didn't need to know it. Her face lit with a bright smile. It was wonderful. He was wonderful. She was grateful for a few moments with him, and that was true. She also kept her hands under the blankets, dug them deeper in. All she did was look at him, watched his face, watched his careful expression, and how slowly he moved, as though not to startle her. Like soft knocks on the door, having someone else care about not startling her made her smile widen. She asked him, "How's it feel to be my hero?" And she realized he didn't glow. He didn't glow anymore. She kept her face still. It didn't matter. It wouldn't matter. Tears rushed to her eyes, but that was okay. That was understandable and forgivable. His smile quirked at the side, and he put the tray down, both of them, knowing she wouldn't eat. "Come on, Shepard. I've always been your hero." "Yeah, you have." "Feels good." "Thank you." "You're welcome." He dragged a chair over. With her hands under the blankets, he hesitated, wanting to reach for her, but instead resting the talons from one hand on the edge of the bed. She couldn't touch him again. He didn't glow. But that didn't matter. Her parents never glowed. He was family now. He was love, like they were. And she couldn't touch him like she couldn't touch them. But he was alive, and he was here, and he had rescued her from Beckenstein, from the blank and the dark. The poetry of Saint-Anne was in her mind, something she'd read while on Beckenstein. The Great Way isn't difficult for those who are unattached to their preferences. Let go of longing and aversion, and everything will be perfectly clear. When you cling to a hair's breadth of distinction, heaven and earth are set apart. If you want to realize the truth, don't be for or against. So, I shouldn't be for or against you, Garrus. I shouldn't be for or against reapers, apparently, according to the wise men, but I am. I am an unwise woman. I've never been all that good at detachment. I love you, and I shouldn't, but I will. The Great Way will be difficult. I am attached. Heaven and earth are set apart. But I'm not in hell, and that's because of you. She wasn't going to recite poetry, but tears filled her eyes. She saw his face reflect the grief, the loss, the pain of the last 6 months, and the fact that his hand could not reach hers. She said, "I've had a rough few months. Looks like you have too. But we both survived me being dead. Okay, well, I didn't survive it at first, but I got better. It will get better. I'll tell you what happened. Some of it, but I can't and won't tell you all of it. I won't be upset if you ask, if you're not upset that I won't answer. Neither of us can keep that deal, but we can both look like we can. I don't know who took me. I was on Ilium, and then something hit me in the neck. Probably a tranq dart. Someone caught me. I woke up looking like this. With him. I had a chip. He used it. He used me. I don't remember much of it, and what I do remember, I'd like to forget. I need to ask a favor. One that I don't understand. One you don't understand, but if we both pretend we understand it, it'll be okay. If we try to understand and can't do it, can't pretend, it won't be okay. Please don't touch me. I don't want you to understand why. I don't want you to use your imagination. I can't explain. I want to avoid a bad day. I want to avoid all the bad days. Garrus's head ducked. A bleak splash through his eyes she could see, then she couldn't see. He was shaking. Okay. I can do that, or not do that. It's been killing me that I thought maybe you were gone because now he remembered what he shouldn't be saying, but it didn't really matter anymore. She loved him, and he loved her, and that couldn't be used against them anymore because there was no future for them. She said, "No, never that, Garrus, never that. I'm not dead. I was taken. I didn't and wouldn't have left. I promise. Never." She smiled and said, "That doesn't even sound like something I'd do, Counselor Vicarian." "Yeah, but it did sound like something that could kill me." "We're tough. We can take a lot. For now, I just want to enjoy not being in that place. I want to enjoy being in this place with the right people. You are the right people." "Well, I am your hero." "And always will be." "I missed you every single moment, Lal." "I missed a lot of moments I'd rather have spent missing you. I'd ask about the war effort, but right now, Garrus, right now I don't care. Right now I care that I'm in a room with you. I can see that you're okay, and I can hear your voice." "I can hear your voice, but I wish I could see your face. This is my face now." He sucked in a fast breath of shock, and his talons gripped the edge of the bed. "Lal, you need to look like you." "This is me. Garrus, when have you known me to be vain?" "This isn't about vanity, Lal. It's about you being you." "This is me being me. I'm not taking 3 weeks out of my life for surgery just so I can feel pretty, Garrus." He stared at her, shocked, and then at her tone and the flipped meaning of her words, he started to laugh. "Okay, now I know you're back. 2 impossible things demanded in 10 minutes. "Only 2? "Maybe a few more." "Garrus, I was in a bad place. A really bad place. You took me out of there." "It was a group effort." "My thanks to the group. If she didn't say it now, maybe she never could. Garrus, I love you." His head jerked up, talons tightening again on the bed. Fear for Edie, fear for her, fear for what it meant that she said it out loud. She couldn't blame him because she was afraid for her, afraid for him, afraid that she'd never be able to say it out loud again. She repeated, "Garrus, I love you. I would never have run away from you. That isn't what happened. If you can get one truth from the wreckage, grab that one and hold on." And then she thought, "Because you can't touch me. You can't hold on to me. You're agreeing to it, but you're not going to listen because you're Garrus." "You're my hero, Shepard." Would you sit with me here, us both being all pretty and heroic and not us at all, but kinda us? And tell me about what's happened out in the galaxy for the last 6 months? I'll tell you what happened inside one house in that galaxy, if you want.
When you're ready.
Not sure I ever will be.
Then it'll wait. You sure you're not hungry?
She didn't want to risk the temptation to touch his hand or spill anything with the way her own hands were shaking. I'm good. I just want to hear your voice.